When big names make bold moves, the government often takes note. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 famous people on government watch lists.
Now, this is the part where I can't get into it, because if I do, it's...
So they got to stay out of their car and their house.
Into a very difficult situation.
Before we begin, we publish new videos every day, so be sure to subscribe for more great content. For this list, we're focusing on historical and pop culture figures that have been flagged for their behavior, or on the grounds of suspicion alone. Number 10. Marilyn Monroe. This American icon was known for her talent, her looks, and her relationships with powerful figures.
You may not believe this, but people keep falling desperately in love with me.
But what caught the attention of the FBI were Marilyn Monroe's, quote, concisely leftist views, which were made more suspicious by her friendship with Frederick Vanderbilt Field. As a member of a famous railroad family, Field was disowned for his support of the Socialist Party as well as communist organizations. So when the Hollywood A-lister visited him in Mexico, the get-together raised some eyebrows.
Oh, don't look at those for nothing. Gay just hung him up for a joke.
The FBI began investigating Monroe in 1955. However, as revealed by the unredacted report released in 2012, they never confirmed her as a member or ally of the Communist Party.
I want to thank you for covering up for me. You're a real pal.
Number 9. Ted Kennedy. In 2004, John F. Kennedy's younger brother relayed some odd experiences to a Senate Judiciary Committee. After being delayed at various American airports, U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy discovered that T. Kennedy is a known terrorist alias. And so the delays seemed to be justified. But his actual first name is Edward, so he should never have been flagged to begin with, as the flagging is supposedly based on legal names only. This revelation sparked questions about Homeland Security, as one of the most famous names in modern American politics found himself being watched and slowed down by his own government due to an alleged clerical error.
Nothing is going to keep me away from this special gathering tonight.
Number 8. Albert Einstein. This theoretical physicist settled for a new life in America in 1933 after Adolf Hitler took over his native Germany. 2 years later, Einstein met Margarita Konyankova, the wife of Russian sculptor Sergei Konyankov, and the two eventually developed a romantic connection. As noted in Walter Isaacson's book, Einstein, His Life and Universe, the unlikely pairing troubled the FBI, as Konyankova was reportedly a Soviet agent. Surveillance commenced on Einstein, but it turned out the brilliant man was simply smitten, perhaps trying to fill a void after the 1936 death of his second wife, Elsa. Regardless, this affiliation, coupled with his support of disarmament, landed him in FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover's crosshairs for 5 years of intensive observation. Number 7. John Lennon. In the 60s, this former Beatle dominated pop culture headlines. In 1971, John Lennon moved to New York City and immersed himself in the American political scene, speaking out for peace and performing at rallies. Given his influence over the youth, he was a natural target for Richard Nixon and government officials. The FBI ultimately produced an estimated 281 pages of documents on Lennon, but as he turned his attention towards other endeavors, and Nixon became focused on Watergate, the investigation concluded, and the British pop icon received his green card. Author John Wiener later gained access to the FBI documents and published some of them in the book Gimme Some Truth, The John Lennon FBI Files. Number 6. Lucille Ball.
I want them to surprise me, but I don't want them to surprise me.
This American comic met the infamous House Un-American Activities Committee in 1953. To be fair, the government had reason to investigate Lucille Ball, given that she'd registered as a communist in both 1936 and 1938.
It was all such utter nonsense because Lucy was almost apolitical.
When the committee released their findings, Ball and her then-husband and co-star Desi Arnaz held a press conference to respond to the accusations against her. As reported by the Los Angeles Times, the actress explained her story, dismissing the whole thing as an ignorant attempt to appease her grandfather. Her husband, for his part, expressed thanks for his American privileges, stating that, quote, "In other countries they shoot first and ask the questions later." Number 5. Malcolm X.
You know, some people call this hate teaching. This isn't hate teaching.
The 60s were a turbulent time in America, and like so many other influential voices, this man wouldn't survive the decade. Before Malcolm X's 1965 assassination by Nation of Islam gunmen, he was the subject of intense surveillance by the American government. Even after leaving the Nation of Islam in March 1964, Malcolm X continued to be a major person of interest, with J. Edgar Hoover allegedly advising that agents, quote, do something about him. There's been endless speculation about the specifics behind Malcolm X's 1965 murder, but it's no secret that American officials watched him closely during his final years. Number 4. Frank Sinatra. In 1943, an emerging superstar was reported to the FBI. After watching Frank Sinatra on television, an unidentified concerned citizen compared the, quote, shrill whistling sound heard during the event to similar noises produced by the crowd when Hitler addressed his people. Thankfully, old Blue Eyes didn't turn out to be a future Hitler. Over the next several decades, however, the government watched as Sinatra's power increased in American society, leading him to the Kennedy family and even the Chicago mob.
They keep banging on the pipes to let me know how much they appreciate it.
All in all, there's a full 1,275 pages on Sinatra. Even so, Frank mostly avoided trouble during his lifetime, ultimately outliving many of his famous friends. Number 3. Martin Luther King Jr. Back in the 60s, this American icon fought for civil rights. Given Martin Luther King Jr.'s following back then, the government tracked his daily activity and personal life, believing him to be under communist control, among other things.
There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship right.
In 1964, someone attempted to blackmail King, even suggesting that he kill himself. The anonymous letter was later connected to the FBI and a covert operation known as COINTELPRO. The goal was to, quote, neutralize MLK. And the relentless surveillance began after the famous I Have a Dream speech, continuing on until King's 1968 death.
I have a dream today.
Number 2. Eleanor Roosevelt. As the niece of one American president and the wife to another, this liberal woman held her own as the First Lady.
The object is to make people everywhere conscious of the importance of human rights and freedom.
In her lifetime, Eleanor Roosevelt promoted relatively radical philosophies and political reform, ultimately writing 8,000 columns and 27 books. She's also notable for hosting regular press conferences, a practice unseen from first ladies before her. Given Roosevelt's influence and power, J. Edgar Hoover kept a close eye on her, worried that socialist ideals were dangerous. From 1940 to 1961, the FBI monitored Eleanor Roosevelt, but it turns out she was simply a self-motivated woman that supported civil rights and progressive thinking.
It was a sick feeling you got from the whole atmosphere.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are some honorable mentions.
I came out favoring a Democratic candidate over a Republican candidate.
I imagine you'd be very good.
Oh, I need a lot of practice on my passing.
Now that I've lost everything to you, say you want to start something new.
Number 1. Muhammad Ali. Throughout his career, this boxing icon was known for talking the talk and walking the walk. In fact, Muhammad Ali spent numerous years away from the sport after refusing to fight in the Vietnam War. Between his conversion to Islam and ever-entertaining media interviews, Ali's name wound up in the files of Operation Minaret, a program later deemed, quote, disreputable, if not outright illegal by some NSA officials.
I made it an easy night because Allah has power of all things.
After Ali's 2016 death, it was reported that the FBI paid special attention to Ali in 1966, fearing him as a potential leader and source of income for the Nation of Islam. Ultimately, Ali's draft evasion conviction was overturned in 1971, and the champ continued on with his prolific career.
George Foreman is hit by a combination of punches, and down he goes. George Foreman is down.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from Watch Mojo and subscribe for new videos every day.